Christine Thomas. Christine Thomas really needs no introduction, at least not in this community and not in the state. As the Dean of the College of Natural Resources, she has promoted that college and helped it become a national and internationally esteemed College of Natural Resources. She has also served on the Wisconsin Natural Resources Board for 11 years and in leadership and advisory positions with many different national organizations. She founded the BOW, or the Becoming an Outdoor Woman program, which is now offered nationally to promote the involvement of women in the outdoor activities and conservation efforts. Before I turn it over to our list of speakers, I wanted to maybe just do a quick aside. I remember well the day I called Chris last year, actually. I think it was the day before the election, and I wanted to congratulate her. And I remember calling and saying, Chris, we are still having a really hard time getting dead people to come to our induction ceremony. So we decided that we would induct you this year. And I think her comment went something like, but I'm so young, Joe, I'm not sure I should be put into the Hall of Fame. And I said, that's no excuse. You can still come to the induction ceremony. Anyway, she is a young inductee. We've had a few other young inductees, and one of the criteria that we have is that these people that we induct are far enough in their career that they will not embarrass us or themselves later. So we're putting Chris on task that her work is not over, and she can remember Baylor Nelson worked 25 years after he retired as the counselor for the Wilderness Society, and did as good work after he retired as he did before. I'd like to then introduce briefly the three speakers. Shannon Hoddle is the daughter of Christine Thomas, and she'll start the program with lots of pictures of, I hope, family fun and good excursions with Major. Is that his name? Major has come along, dog of the family. John Tomke has lots of credits. I'll just cover a couple of them. Chair of the Wildlife and Hunting Heritage Conservation Council, which he and Chris have served on. He's also a member of the Boone and Crockett Conservation Committee and former president of Ducks Unlimited. Lastly, Peter Peshtick is a good friend of Chris and the family and an advocate of Wisconsin conservation. Made a mark for himself with the Wisconsin Public Intervenors Office, which was closed down some years ago, much to the sorrow of most of us, and I think to the sorrow of the environmental advocacy. With that, I'd like Shannon to come up and start off, and then follow that by John and by Peter.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you for this opportunity to present in behalf of my mom on this momentous occasion. I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to Joe Passano and the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame Committee for recognizing Christine for her achievements and contributions, to Kathleen Falk and Peter Peshek for preparing the nomination, and to all those who submitted letters of support. On behalf of our family, we are so proud of you, Mom, and delighted to celebrate this distinguished honor with you. I plan to illustrate an account of my mom's life, highlighting the more personal aspects and leaving the professional accomplishments to my co-presenters, John Tomke and Peter Peshek. Many of you know my mom and her infamous stories quite well, while others, maybe not as much. But I hope each of you will discover something this morning you did not know about this wilderness woman. Christine Lynn Zuby was born on September 5th, 1951, to the parents of Darlene, Spencer, and Kenneth Zuby. She and her younger sister, Deborah, grew up in a small cottage on a canal in the Detroit, Michigan suburb of West Bloomfield. Although Christine's hunting adventures, for which she is renowned, would not occur until later in life, she did grow up with hunting influences, Springer Spaniels Kit and Sunny, which her dad took afield each Sunday. But it is here, on the canal, where the pipe fitter's influence on his daughter would foster a lifelong love of water. Fishing and boating would become life passions that Christine would sustain throughout her outdoor adventures. In 1969, Christine graduated from West Bloomfield High School and became the first of her family to attend college, enrolling at Central Michigan University. It is here at CMU that she met my father, Stanton Thomas, a former U.S. Army Green Beret and Vietnam veteran. And in December of 1972, Christine graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Biology, got married, and began the next set of adventures. My dad grew up on a farm in rural southwestern Michigan, and this is where my folks began their life together. In this same small farming community with Stan's parents and grandparents, Christine transformed from Motown urbanite to rural farm girl and embraced Thomas family traditions such as quilting, gardening, and hunting. The Thomas family has a generations-long tradition of deer hunting in upper and northern Michigan. And it is here where Christine became indoctrinated into deer camp, a tradition she would wholeheartedly embrace, share with friends, and pass on to the next generation. In addition to deer hunting, time in the UP included hunting for morels, snowmobiling, and of course, fishing. In 1977, Stan and Christine packed up and headed for the next frontier, a 3,200-acre farm called the Field Ranch in Hancock, Wisconsin. That September, Christine began a graduate program in water resources at the College of Natural Resources. And after earning her master's degree, she went to work as staff assistant to Dean Traynor. In these nascent years with the college and under the mentorship of Dan Traynor, Christine found her home both professionally at the college and culturally in Wisconsin. In 1983, or more precisely September of '82, my folks decided to start a family. And the following June, I was born. The family outdoor adventures continued, but now with a kid-friendly focus. From day one, my mom exposed me to hunting, fishing, wildlife identification and observation, and camping, among many other things. This was her way of passing it on to the next generation. As I approached school age, my parents sold the farm and moved to Plover, Wisconsin. By now, my mom was deeply committed to the college, and with Dean Traynor's encouragement, she began to explore next steps. While juggling her responsibilities as mom and her duties with the college, Christine enrolled in a land resources doctoral program at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where she conducted her dissertation on policy making of the Wisconsin Natural Resources Board, an experience that would serve her well in the future during her tenure as a board member. Following graduation, she joined the college's faculty as an assistant professor of resource management. It was at this point, as a fledgling professor, Christine began casting for a niche. Through a variety of outreach projects, Christine stumbled onto one opportunity that would pave the way to her future successes. Breaking Down Barriers was a conference initiated to evaluate why more women weren't participating in hunting and what could be done about it. Lack of know-how turned out to be the predominant barrier, and this prompted Christine and her colleague Tammy Peterson to initiate the Becoming an Outdoors Woman program, empowering women with the skills and the confidence to venture afield. The BOW program's success led to the publication of her first book and launched her onto the national scene, drawing attention and support from conservation organizations like Safari Club International. BOW also became the catalyst for some of Christine's most cherished friendships. I'll explain this in a minute. Although highly impactful, the boat program was really an outreach happenstance that elevated and enabled Christine to contribute to conservation on a more consequential level. She went on to become the college's first female full professor, followed by associate dean in 1999 and dean in 2005. And it was then that I would tease her that PhD must stand for pretty hot dean. Christine has been the recipient of numerous conservation and teaching awards. She has served on boards and leadership roles at both state and national levels, and has been an invited judge for the duck stamp contest. But my personal favorite is her involvement in the college's Northern Wisconsin Bear Research Project. You may be surprised with all my mom's professional commitments that she even has time for a life outside the college. Some of her treasured activities include spending time in her gardens, entertaining, trying new recipes, traveling, and cheering on the pack. So I would be remiss if I did not mention her hunting dog, Major Mischief, second to none. As a girl, Christine discovered Airedales Terriers in the front of the Webster's Dictionary, and they have been an important part of her life ever since. For her, there is no greater pleasure than going afield with her hunting Airedale, something I too may have a fondness for. If you are wondering where my mom goes to recharge, welcome to the WRT, an off-the-grid cabin situated on 130 acres near the Portage and Wapaka County line. It is here, on her own parcel of Wisconsin wilderness, where we sight in our deer rifles, continue our family hunting traditions, observe the wildlife, harvest our Christmas trees, enjoy the fruits of the land, and tell big buck stories around the campfire. Christine's wide array of outdoor experiences have not only provided the fodder for her tales of adventure, but have fueled her sense of purpose to promote and preserve Wisconsin's wildlife, lands, and hunting traditions for generations to come. Of all the things, many exciting things, my mom has been a part of, I believe the thing she is most proud of is her role as Dean of the College of Natural Resources. Dan Trainer's mentorship inculcated a passion for the college's mission, and Christine is committed to grooming the next generation of faculty with the expectation they too will pass it on to future young minds. Thank you, and happy Earth Day.
What a pleasure and honor it is to be with you and be part of such a meaningful experience today. If I were to gather together the leaders of North American conservation community and ask them to list the most influential conservation leaders of this time, most, if not all of them, would mention Dr. Christine Thomas. If I then asked them to name the most respected conservation leaders, then I would wager that all of those lists would include Christine's name. I'm John Tomke. I'm a longtime Ducks Unlimited volunteer and past president and chairman of the board. I'm also a member of the Boone and Crockett Club and a board member of the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. And I've had the honor of serving with Christine as chair and vice chair of the Wildlife and Hunting Heritage Conservation Council. This council advises the Secretary of Agriculture and the Secretary of the Interior on policy issues related to wildlife and habitat health, conservation, funding, public access, hunting, and recreational shooting. I actually met Christine about 15 years ago when she served on a similar federal advisory committee in the George W. Bush administration. Since that time, Christine has advised 5 secretaries of the Interior, 3 secretaries of Agriculture, and 3 different presidential administrations. Dr. Thomas has become known as the voice of reason in all of those discussions. To say she's passionate about conservation and hunting and the future of the outdoors would be an understatement at best. Not only has Christine advised 8 cabinet secretaries, she's also a former board member of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and in fact served as vice chair of that board. I've also had the pleasure of serving with her on the board of directors of Ducks Unlimited, the world's largest wetlands and waterfowl conservation organization. Christine serves on DU's Conservation Programs Committee, which advises where program funds should be expended. After just 1 year on the DU board, she was chosen to chair the organization's Science Advisory Committee. As you all know, she's also served on the Wisconsin Natural Resources Board of Directors for 11 years, where she spent 3 years as chair. While Christine shows her passion for conservation through serving on numerous boards, she's also a professional member of the Boone and Crockett Club, the oldest conservation organization in the United States, an organization founded by President Theodore Roosevelt. She's valued there for her advice and counsel on issues such as retention and recruiting of outdoor enthusiasts and also wildlife health. As you heard earlier, to further her passion in retention and recruiting of outdoor people, Christine founded an organization, Becoming an Outdoors Woman. This marvelous program has assisted thousands of women to enjoy the outdoors through workshops, field education, and hands-on training, all while increasing participation in conservation, hunting, shooting, and fishing. And Christine has proven that yes, Airedales can be hunting dogs, as evidenced by Shannon's near siblings, Sonny and Major. And in that regard, Christine has taught me a new term. At one of our council meetings, she handed me a note apologizing for going Airedale. Later, she told me that was grabbing hold like hell, shaking it, and not letting go, no matter what. I want to close with just 2 short stories that really demonstrate Christine's passion for wildlife and the outdoor life. One of our DU leaders has a wonderful duck hunting lodge in Northern California, and he has a close relationship with the wildlife management faculty at the University of California at Davis. Each year he hosts a weekend for wildlife students who have never hunted. Many of them are women. The weekend consists of hunter safety training, bird identification, and then finally a morning duck hunt with an experienced guide. Christine was invited to sit in on that weekend this past January. If you'll recall, this past January in California was most noted for rain, not ducks. So late in the morning of the hunt, I sent Christine a text message simply asking, ducks or just rain? In a few minutes, I got a reply. I received this 8-word message. I shot a banded drake mallard. I cried. The second story involves Christine's initiative to create an endowed chair in waterfowl biology at UWSP. She was able to secure 2 7-figure gifts to make that happen. And it's the only endowed chair in waterfowl in the Great Lakes region. I know those 2 donors, and Christine's reputation and her passion were the drivers in securing those gifts. By the way, those donors had never previously contributed to Wisconsin Stevens Point. I attended the installation ceremony for that chair, and it was obvious that this was an emotional moment for Christine. In her remarks, she commented on the impact this position would have in perpetuity. The impact Christine Thomas will have will last beyond the endowed chair, beyond the classroom, and beyond the administration corridor. It will continue in all those people who she has trained and all those she has touched. Like Alda Leopold, in whose shadow we stand, Christine Thomas cares about wild things. She's one of America's leading advocates for wildlife and for habitat conservation, and she is more than qualified to be inducted into the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. Christine, it's been an honor to serve with you in several capacities and to watch your commitment to conservation and the outdoors infect those people around you. I hope we can share many more board tables and perhaps even a duck blind or 2 in the coming years. And I congratulate you on this very special honor. Thank you for asking.
Good morning. Over 5 decades ago, I was debate coach of Plymouth High School. I stressed to students the importance of their presentation's introduction. Pat Durkin's April 9, 2017 article regarding Dean Thomas started, "Christine Thomas stands out in every crowd that surrounds her, probably because few can match her passionate work for Wisconsin's natural resources and the people, history, and institutions that nurture them." I've chosen my introduction to be a note I sent to Dean Thomas as the November duck hunting season heated up last year on Lake Michigan. Dear Christine, it was 5:55 a.m. last Saturday. We were in a small boat on a very windy Green Bay headed out to duck hunt. Also on the boat was a first-time 12-year-old young lady duck hunter. She looked to the eastern horizon and said, "Just like Picasso." It was at that moment that I thought of you. Indeed, our young female hunter harvested her first duck shortly thereafter. A splendid great golden eye, and yes, it was mounted. The day before, my hunting companion was a seasoned 78-year-old woman, decked out in appropriate garb, including chest-high waders. She told me that while she had retired from deer hunting, she has remained very busy trout fishing, having just come back from Wyoming. And she told me she was also a graduate of your women's program. Young and old, there remains hope for diversity in the hunting community. So where does one start this story? My telephone rings, and I see that it's Kathleen Falk. I know I'm about to receive yet another work assignment. Another barrier to knock down or climb over. And little did I know during that telephone conversation that the then Professor Thomas's first Becoming an Outdoor Women's program in 1991 was entitled Breaking Down Barriers to Women Hunting and Angling. Sure enough, Kathleen reminds me that women in the conservation movement are not receiving their fair share of credit, and we must act. A very few days later, at the headquarters of Gathering Waters, 8 senior conservation leaders discussed the issue thoroughly. And 2 weeks later, a decision is made. Dean Christine Thomas shall be nominated to the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. Scores of letters of support followed. And hopefully today my presentation captures the thoughts of those who were at that meeting at Gathering Waters and those who sent in those many letters of support. I'm going to comment on 3 areas. Christine as Dean, the Women's Outdoors Program, and Christine's 11 years on the Natural Resources Board. And as I want to do, not only will I provide some factoids, I'll provide a little context for some of these areas of activity. In my many decades in the public policy arena, one of the facts that really stood out was the contribution of the School of Natural Resources faculty played in defining conservation and environmental issues. Often the research and the scientific hypothesis that was advanced by the faculty were, listen to these words, politically awkward to the establishment. But the faculty appeared most comfortable challenging the status quo. Without telling Dean Thomas what I was up to, I probed this subject matter with her a few weeks ago. Her response demonstrated the simplistic brilliance of a superstar leader. She told me, quote, "The role of Dean is to make the world safe for students and faculty." Wisconsin has many centers of excellence when it comes to conservation. A cabin in the sand country, a retreat in Malin owned by Louis and Martin Hampson, the UW-Madison campus, the reaches of northern Door County, and the largest school of natural resources in the United States, right here in Stevens Point. 1,700 students, of which 35% are women, 43 faculty members, 33 endowed chairs, numerous national awards, Dean since 2004, Christine has much to be proud of when one considers there are some 454 wildlife programs nationwide. Historically, less than 10 of those have ever been led by a woman. The following factoid came to mind. In the universe, in our Earth, there are really 5 major, what you would call international institutions of world-class museums. Last December, after hundreds of years, the first woman was finally selected to lead one of those institutions. The appointee observed, and this was the Vatican Museum, the appointee observed, quote, "I benefit somewhat from the desire of Pope Francis to show openness in so many ways. But I hope I was chosen because of what I did in the Vatican over the last 20 years." For those closest to the Dean, I think of you, could you not also imagine Christine having said similar words 20 years ago? Finally, when asked about her 37 years on campus, she says her proudest moment was being chosen by the students as an outstanding professor. Let's switch subjects to the Outdoor Women program. Changing culture is very hard work and requires real leadership. What looks so easy in retrospect, that us looking back those 30-some years, was not easy when one seeks fundamental change in society. The statistics on becoming an Outdoors Women program provide all the context one needs to appreciate the Dean's work. 43 states, 7 Canadian provinces have adopted the program in one fashion or the other. And Nebraska, of course, was the first to emulate her work. Up to 20,000 women a year have taken advantage of this program. 21 barriers were identified at the first gathering in 1991. Barriers remain, including, and I believe these would be the Dean's words, creating a community for women in the hunting and fishing world. Creating this community is both a practical and moral imperative, whether we do this in a group setting or as an individual hunter or angler. A few words about the Natural Resources Board. Undoubtedly, only one person in Wisconsin can claim to have done a PhD dissertation on the Natural Resources Board and later served on that board for 11 years and 3 years, of course, as its chair. But I noted when I reread their PhD thesis before this presentation, and I note that 2 of the people who signed off on our PhD thesis are highlights of the conservation movement's history, Bud Jordahl and Jim McDonald. The Dean told me that she ranks serving on that Natural Resources Board as one of the 3 highlights of her career. I compared Christine's initial comments regarding the board with her 269-page dissertation. It's remarkable that what she sees today is what she saw back in 1989. In the Dean's view, and I share this view, the Natural Resources Board is offering citizen participation in a truly public setting. During her board tenure, she had to deal with such divisive issues as hunting in state parks and the nuances of wolf hunting. As chair, Christine deleveraged drama and headlines and focused on public policy outcomes. She was simply thoughtful and effective. She handled her role with the usual professionalism, or to use the words of Pat Durkin, and I quote, "Given her humility and her sense of humor, Thomas could give her own induction address without looking vain." Now I have a confession. I have a confession to make and a short war story to tell. As this process went on, I had a momentary doubt about our honoree. The Dean summons me to a breakfast meeting to talk about ducks. So when I arrive, I give Christine a duck identification test, which both she and her team member flunked. Now, the dean is already in my doghouse for never having hunted the incredible resources of Lake Michigan. However, I can tell you my common senses immediately returned. The dean and her team have just secured the second endowed chair in the United States dedicated to waterfowl research. The future of duck hunting policy in Wisconsin will be forever changed once the research efforts of this program reach fruition. All doubts disappear as this remarkable leader and her team once again deliver for the conservation movement. And so, Dean Thomas, I leave you with this admonition. Now that you are a member of the Conservation Hall of Fame, you may not retire. More students and faculty await your future leadership. More young ladies need to see Picasso at 5:30 in the morning. More women need to enjoy a shore lunch of walleye and homemade bacon while keeping the pesky black bear at bay. More women need to share duck hunting camps with pan-fried duck, followed by robust conversations regarding Wisconsin's conservation needs and hopes. Dean Thomas, you have built an incredible foundation and achieved so much for the women and men hunters and anglers of Wisconsin. On behalf of all of those who supported your induction, thank you.
I'd like to thank Shannon and John and Peter for their remarks about, yes, Christine Thomas, a good friend, but also a great conservationist. At this time, we'll just take a few minutes to move through the rest of the induction ceremony. I wanted to say one other thing. I think she was mentioned earlier, but Kathleen Falk helped with the nomination material, and see that she's here in the audience. Thank you much for the help you've given the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame, and especially, it was a letter from her some years ago about the need to look at diversity that I think prompted our organization to look in a different direction. So thank you very much, Kathleen. Is Katrina Shanklin here? Have you come up and read part of the citation, please?
Well, it's such an honor to be able to present this citation to Dean Christine Thomas. It's pretty clear, and I think there's unanimity that we're standing among a giant in the conservation field, not just in our state, but nationally. So when I was working on putting this citation together, the biggest problem that I had was there were so many things to recognize that I couldn't quite fit them all on there. That's to be able to accomplish so much in so little time, I think can only be said due to her passion and her ability to inspire everyone around her to do more. Some of the highlights of the citation: from serving on the Natural Resources Board to being appointed by the Secretary of Interior. You all heard about the many different conservation clubs she's been a part of, as well as BOE. I'll just read the very end. Whereas Christine embodies the conservation ethic and has been recognized nationally for her efforts, from the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries honoring her to being named one of the 20 most influential conservationists in Wisconsin in the 20th century by the Wisconsin Outdoor Journal. And whereas Dean Thomas has received over a dozen awards for her leadership, and she was inducted into the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel Sports Show Hall of Fame for Conservation Achievement, named Distinguished Alumna by the Central Michigan University College of Science and Technology, and recognized as one of the top 25 influential people in hunting and fishing in the leaders category. Now, therefore, the members of the Wisconsin Legislature do hereby commend and congratulate Christine Thomas on her tremendous accomplishments
and well-deserved induction into the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. You embody the Wisconsin idea, and I think we're all just so inspired by your efforts, so thank you so much.
At this time, I'd like, Katrina, would you be willing to just stay up here? I realize that I want to unveil the plaque, and that sometimes needs extra help. So at this time, we'll unveil the induction plaque for Christine Thomas. Previous years, that was always so small, so starting last year, we decided to take a photo and put it on the screen for everyone to see. Because the plaque will stay in the gallery at the Hall of Fame, we've also made a replica of it that Christine can take and share with Major and Stan and whoever else wants to visit that noble household of yours. Christine, I'd like to invite you up at this time and accept the citation from Katrina and also this replica. Probably better to do this out here because there's sometimes a picture of two kids.
Thank you to everyone who had a part in this, the nomination, the Conservation Hall of Fame, my presenters. Thank you very much. I am a really lucky person that I landed in Wisconsin. Thank you for adopting me. Thank you all for helping me do wonderful things. It's been a really good life. Thank you.
An MC should know when not to say anything, but I've never learned that skill. I think you've seen Chris at her best. She's known as the feistiest woman we have on campus, but she has a really great heart, which also gets shared with people. Thank you very much, Chris.